essentially, when I was invited to be the Energy Man of the Year or whatever, back in Addis Ababa,
yes,
I did a lot of research, because I'm not really a collector of awards. I got an award with Forbes, and I wanted to really check if there was real impact, that I can bring onto the table. But when I got to Addis Ababa, I saw the cream of people, cutting across the continent, ranging from the resource all the way to the service sector and the rest of them. So I was thrilled, and I was really happy to take that award. And from then, when Ken approached me to come and be member of the advisory council, and I began to ask myself, what am I going to contribute? What's the real problem? And again, those questions have been answered here.
Okay.
But as we go along, I'll give a bigger perspective of what we should all do as a continent to be able to galvanize all spoken and unspoken words, to be able to champion the leadership that we ought to have in Africa.
Yes. Thank you again. Thank you again. And sir, you're the chairman of Pana Group.
Yeah.
And for you, leadership is not just mere talk. You've been a leader for a couple of decades now. So the question will be, over your years as a leader, you've seen evolution. You've seen, for example, the trends for young people across Africa. I'm not just talking Nigeria. So I want two things now for you, because you started building as a young man. So what were things? What drove you as a young man to begin to build and not just think local, but pan-African? Yes, that'll be the first question. Then we'll get to the next.
Excellent. Basically, growing up, I'm sure when I'm going to give the closing remark, I will indicate it.
Okay.
Growing up as a child, I went through some very humble beginning. Actually, it was on the street. I have a parent, or I have parents that were not, very much available for the education. Yeah. But then I have to figure out that it must start with the right mind.
Yes.
So leadership for me is about the mind.
Yes.
Okay. So coming out, growing over, went through schools, took myself to various places, worked with General Electric, came back and resigned and, founded my company. I saw that sparkle. And one of the things that made me to come out was, how can I better the society? And it wasn't myself. I was probably one of the highest paid African employee of GE at that time. Okay. But the question was, how can I better my people? Just call you regional sales director, Middle East and Africa, doesn't make a sense. But, I still have a lot of foreign people coming to work and going around. So I began to ask myself, what will I do for my people? So I started that journey, and we did a project called One Positive Step. How General Electric at that time wanted to more or less, come up open to work in Africa. Yeah. And incidentally, it was discovered, and I did that discovery, that Africa was actually contributing so much to their, sales output. But there was no infrastructure. I remember then when I went to work in Bahrain, I started working in Bahrain in a small building. 20 years later, when I went back to Bahrain, GE had built several buildings, whereas there was no building of GE that I know in Africa, before 2008, that before I left. Yes. So that gave me a lot of concern. And not only GE, talking about the Schlumberger of this world, the Baker Hughes of this world, or whatever you call it, Accenture or whatever, they just come around, do the resources, take everything and go back. So that became the spark for me to come back and set up, Pana Holdings. And so as Pana Holdings, I started with what I know how to do best while I was in GE, and there were two things: flow metering and vibration and condition monitoring. So I've done a lot of services across the African continent, especially where there was oil.
Yes.
Today, I think there's a lot of discovery in non-oil existing, provinces or countries now. But at that time, I used to go around Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, Qatar, Angola, Equatorial Guinea, and so on, a lot of places. And I see the same thing. When you go to Angola, you go to the platform, you can't find you know, a national, doing the very specific jobs. You see them, you know, the rig floors and all of that, and then there is an accommodation for the better expatriates, you know, and there is no accommodation for the I don't call them local anymore, call the nationals, you know. So that became very, very disturbing for me, and I came out to bridge that gap.
Wow.
So rather than them employing me now, I'm employing the expatriates. I'm putting all of them at par, and then some of our people have done very well.
Wow.
Because knowledge is not a respecter of color.
True.
And then tribe or whatever you call it.
Yeah, race. So that's phenomenal, because in fact, before I even go to the next question, you see that desire to contribute, to give back, because we've seen a lot of young people who, for them, it's about what can I get, and then you as a young man, you're getting already enough, more than enough for yourself, and you say, no, but I've seen what I can get, but how can I then do something that not only benefits me but benefits my people? And I think would you say that that's something that we still have a lot in Africa, especially within? Yes,
I found one of the statements. So, in summary, you know, coming back to the first set of panel, you know, they try to define leadership.
Yes.
And I feel that some people said entrepreneurship, some people said doers, some people said executors. Yes. You know, some people talk about ethical leadership, talking about, you know, all of that. But the summary of it is that we should understand that most African countries were being colonized.
Yes.
And the colonialism was about system. So the first leadership question we need to ask is, do we continue to be colonized?
Yeah.
Or do we break that bond? So I redefined what they call the journey of 1,000 miles. Everybody is a Chinese proverb, but I guess that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. And I come around and I said no, because it doesn't begin with a step. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the right mind, with the right attitude, and then the right step, and again in the right direction. The problem that we have in Africa is that before we ascend onto a leadership position, our mind is already corrupt. The agenda for that leader is embezzlement. The agenda for that leader is not to change the colonial, you know, narrative. His agenda is, how can I make more money? How can I buy more vehicles? How can I build more houses? So for you to be a transformative leader, you must have the right mindset. And that mindset should be geared towards one basic thing, and it was also a word that was used there, is to realize the need of your people.
Yes.
Philanthropy does not work anymore. It's an old, you know, tactics.
Yeah.
What is important now is shared value. Shared value means that how can a community that is hosting you is benefiting integrally the economic benefit of your business. And so we should understand that government alone cannot do it, to be scattered. Yes. Okay? So God created us with system. Whether you like it or not, the respiratory system of you is almost the same thing as the respiratory system. What changes is a little bit of climatic situation. So that's why you can see that obesity definition in America is similar to obesity definition in this, but it has to do with genetic, conditions. So Africa must have a little bit of standard procedures, standard operating procedures across Africa. Wow. I mean, Russia, they've done it. You see, Russia, as big as Russia, they have gold standard. What is African standard? And if we must talk about African Continental Free Trade Zone and whatever you talk about, it is that we need to have a guide rail.
Yes.
That guide rail is what will bring Zambia, Ghana, everybody to the same template. We don't have same template.
Yes. Wow. Wow. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, this just as a wrap up now, this is the final question. Now, because you touched on something very important there. You said we must own our own narrative. So repeatable systems, processes in place, then we must take charge of our own narrative and then take this narrative to other parts of the world. What would you say about the work that the companies like organizations like African Leadership Organization here, we do. I mean, you've been at our last year's event in Addis Ababa. You're here in London.
Yeah. So the good news that I'm on the council, and what I try to do also in Nigeria is really, so my task currently is actually to harmonize government policies. So I started with the oil and gas. So in oil and gas, I've created, a kind of guide rail, because the problem is today we're talking about increase in oil production, but also if you're increasing oil production, you must decrease cost of producing the oil. Yes. Because whether the oil prices are low or there is decline in oil, measurement is key. So the very first thing I did was advise the president on, creating a platform for us to measure ourselves. Yes. Yeah. After that, then you need to create a platform for the production of oil value chain, whether it's agriculture or so. Incidentally, I had the Honorable talking about power. So I just did a power event in Nigeria, and you see that the stream of power from power generation to power transmission to power distribution, they are totally disconnected. Yes. And I see that government should actually build a lot of, ancillary business around power plants. Okay. But they are not doing that. So again, in my country, the problem is that they say they have more installed power base than more utilized power base. And the more utilized power base is deficient because the transmission systems are always continually going down. So how can you integrate all of those things and make the community become part of the ecosystem? That is what is called shared community value. No more philanthropy. Don't give them schools, don't build them roads. I mean, the business itself will build all of those things. Otherwise, you build a classroom for somebody and you're paying him a peanut, he will leave and come to UK to come and wash plates to get pounds. Yeah. So again, there must be that interconnectivity amongst the entire value chain. Again, what is the value chain? Yes. That value chain is what African leaders must define. Yeah. Whether AU, all the donor agencies is becoming everything. Talking about tariff, the same problem. Yes. A lot of, I try to talk about what is called tariff due diligence. Have we done tariff due diligence? What is the harmonized code for Gambia, Tanzania, and all of that? What is the interconnectivity? Until those things are resolved.